A jury will have to decide whether a confession from accused killer David Lyttle was genuine or not. Appearing in the Wellington High Court 11 months after his previous trial was called off, Mr Lyttle is accused of killing Whanganui man Brett Hall in May 2011. His body has never been found. Ben Strang reports.
The Crown says David Lyttle shot his friend Brett Hall in a dispute over money. Mr Lyttle had been hired to build Mr Hall a house on a rural Whanganui property. But the lawyer for the Crown, Michelle Wilkinson-Smith, says Mr Lyttle was spending money destined for building materials on his day-to-day living costs. Because Mr Hall wanted his money back, she says tensions escalated.
David Lyttle shot Brett Hall. Unable to carry the body and desperate to cover up what he had done, he put the body on a tarpaulin, he said, and cut it into two pieces. He carried it away in his car in black plastic rubbish bags.
Mrs Wilkinson-Smith says Mr Lyttle later admitted to his crime.
3 years later, there was an undercover operation, and David Lyttle confessed to the undercover officers that he had killed Mr Hall. He repeated his confession when he was finally arrested. After his arrest, he said he was glad to get it off his chest.
But the defence, led by Christopher Stevenson, says that confession was coerced by undercover police officers offering to fix Mr Lyttle's financial woes. Addressing the jury of 6 men and 6 women, Mr Stevenson said officers were told a story and nothing more.
I bet you didn't think that coming along here on a Monday you'd be hearing stories about murder and shooting and a body being cut in half, and as Madam Prosecutor said, allegedly put in the back of a car and outside the family home over a weekend. Couldn't be put away or disposed of apparently because there were family matters to attend to.
Mr Stevenson says Mr Lyttle was a father who sold chocolates to raise money for his daughter's school trips, and the financial pressures led to his false confession.
If you think that some of it sounds slightly outlandish or far-fetched, that's because it is. Because none of that happened. David Lyttle did not kill Brett Hall.
David Lyttle was in tears as his lawyer addressed the jury and detailed the financial pressures he was under. It's those same pressures the Crown says led to Brett Hall's murder, and they say the confession came as a relief to Mr Lyttle after keeping the secret for 3 years. Justice Gillian Mellon told the jury that they'll have to decide if Mr Little's confessions were true.
First, it is important that you know that Mr Lyttle says he was lying when he made those admissions. Whether he was lying to the undercover officers will be one of the key, or perhaps the key question for you at the end of the day. Secondly, it is important for you to know that people do make false confessions. That is a fact.
The trial at the Wellington High Court is expected to take up to 10 weeks. For Checkpoint, Ben Strang.